The Florida Panthers played their first game in about 6 days. In between that, there was a trade deadline and a West Coast trip prior to that. And the Florida Panthers in Thursday's game kind of looked like that they had 6 days off. And we're going to bring in Nick Fairbanks of PantherParkway.com to discuss the Florida Panthers 4-3 win over the Montreal Canadiens. And we're going to talk about some of the newest additions of the Lockdown Florida of the Florida Panthers as they made their debut on Thursday. So we're going to discuss all of this on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're at your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen today. I'm Armando Velez from PantherParkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. You can also follow the national show Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. We'll be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. So, Cats fans, the Florida Panthers played their first game since the trade deadline. Prior to that, they were on a West Coast trip where they went 2-1-1. The Florida Panthers made a trade right before that end of the West Coast trip. Bringing Ben Sherratt, and then they made two additional moves prior to the trade deadline. And the Florida Panthers, they came out, they played against the Montreal Canadiens in this first game of their Canadian trip over in Canada. And on today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we have Nick Fairbanks from PantherParkway.com on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to discuss the win, the newest edition of the Panthers, and so much more. So, Nick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Armando. It's great to be back, and great to be back on a winning Thursday again.
Not only a winning Thursday, but a better time that we are recording a podcast, because last week, as fun as it was, I definitely turned into a night owl just for a little bit, and it lingered a little bit after that West Coast trip. So it was hard for me to get adjusted again to a normal sleep schedule. But we're back. We're back, and the Florida Panthers are back. Trade deadline prior to that, get Claude Giroux in between. And the Florida Panthers, they went into Montreal. Ben Sherratt stays the whole time over in Quebec. He uses the facilities over there in Montreal. Great gesture by the Habs to let him use their facility, even though he was skating by himself, and also allowing him to pack his stuff before he eventually moves as well. Gets one skate in with the Panthers in practice, and then plays. So this game, though, for the Panthers, it kind of looked like that they had 6 days off, and there's a lot of lapses in this one as well. But the Florida Panthers, coming out of the trade deadline, you couldn't ask for a better situation going against the worst team in the NHL in the Montreal Canadiens coming out of the trade deadline. So a win, it's a win, but not probably one that you move on, and a very forgettable win.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of things going on. So the first goal, by Suzuki, seemed like a shot that Spencer Knight should have had. He saw it the whole way, in my opinion, and just missed it. But thankfully, we have Alexander Barkov on the team, and about 9 seconds later ties the game up. And then, you have a couple instances where, maybe the team was just not really in position. You think of Sam Bennett, where he was on the 4-3 goal, unfortunately, just kind of skating in the zone, not really making an effort to get back to back check. and that led to the game getting closer. So definitely some things to iron out, but it was very impressive to see the three new guys in Panthers uniforms kind of slide right in and make an impact, a positive one if that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sam Bennett in front of the net and all, and a lot of the times in this game, the Florida Panthers allowed too many breakaway opportunities on Spencer Knight. And even early on in this game, there was a little bit of back and forth between David Savard and Jonathan Huberdeau, Ryan Lomberg. There was a little bit of history going back to when David Savard was on the Tampa Bay Lightning during their cup run. Of course, David Savard ending up winning the championship with Tampa Bay and then signing with Montreal, a defensive defenseman. And I have to see that replay again on the Suzuki goal, but I think Spencer Knight got screened, but I have to look at it again on that one. And then amazing how when the Panthers were up down 1-0, I was like, okay, penalty right away. They score literally 9 seconds after the penalty. Barkov comes back on right off the draw and just takes it with a wrister to make it 1-1. Just like that. The chippiness a little bit with Savard and Florida Panthers went a little bit into the first period, but didn't really continue after that. And let's talk a little bit about the power play. New unit of the power play. They go 1 for 6 in tonight's game, but 1 for 6. People are going to see power play percentage is not the best for this game, but I'm gonna say I'm not panicking based on this power play unit because these guys are still getting accumulated with one another. I saw plenty of times that Claude Giroux was just really hard to get the puck out of his stick every time the Montreal Canadiens went to check his stick. So I'm kind of like really starting to like appreciate like Claude Giroux more and more. I mean, it helps that he's on the team that we cheer for, but good to I kind of see like his puck handling skills, how it's hard to get the puck out of his stick if you're defending him.
Yeah, and how many of those guys can you have on the power play? I mean, you have Barkov, you have Huberdeau, now you have Giroux, Reinhart. When he's on that unit. So I don't think you can ever have enough guys that can handle the puck on a string and not get it taken away. But I think it's going to take a game or two for them to get assimilated with each other to really kind of understand their tendencies. The one thing I would like to see is to make it simple, just shoot the puck. Not everything has to be fancy. I said in the chat today that I just wish Huberdeau would just shoot because there was a couple times where he's just trying to make the pretty pass like he always does. And, he does it with good reason and good intention and everything like that. But I think the league has kind of caught on to that pass. So definitely make the best pass possible, as Denny Potvin used to say. Shoot it towards the net, and you'll get a rebound, and who knows what will happen after that.
Yeah, definitely miss Denny Potvin doing color commentary on when it was called Fox Sports Florida. But yeah, but Jonathan Huberdeau though, he gets 2 assists tonight in this one. Now he is 4 assists away from breaking the record for a single season in assists for a left winger. So just an incredible feat by Jonathan Huberdeau. Sure, we want to see him shoot more, but there are times where I see Jonathan Huberdeau try to make a play instead of shooting it, and of course we want to see him shoot more. But then I see some of those highlight reel plays that he makes, and I kind of get why he doesn't do it. So there's a little bit of I don't know what's the best words to use. I mean, there's a little when it comes to Jonathan Huberdeau, we just know that that's just his greatest ability. But but we saw like a different version of him, just last Friday in Anaheim, just getting those 2 goals, and we know that Jonathan Huberdeau is capable of definitely doing so. But just Spencer Knight wasn't busy early on, but but those next 2 periods for the Florida Panthers, definitely a lot of chances the other way. But we're gonna actually talk about that more in the next break, talking about some of some of the mishaps and the lack of communication that the Florida Panthers had in this game against the Montreal Canadiens. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And this is the time of year where I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. All Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Yes, Puffs included. At Built Bar, they're all about taste. They make it taste delicious first and figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your next listen of the day, make sure you listen to the Locked On Now podcast. It's nightly recaps from all the local experts on the Locked On NHL channel with nightly recaps of every game. So back on the second segment of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, I have Nick Fairbanks on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, a lot of breakaway opportunities for the Montreal Canadiens, but a lot of breaks that the Florida Panthers had in this one. I don't know how many. I'm trying to look up shot attempts. Even was trying to look up pre-recording for Cole Caulfield because I felt like sometimes when he had some breakaways, there were so many opportunities that he could have gotten one past night, but just flat out missed the nets. As far as shots on goal that Caulfield had, 4 on goal. Mm-hmm. And then there was an opportunity by Nick Suzuki right in front of the net, but just couldn't handle the puck right there. So 4-3 win. But even then, there was a lot of the Panthers were caught up in line changes multiple times. I saw a giveaway by Mackenzie Weegar early on, and Spencer Knight, the save percentage for an individual game in this one is not going to stand out. But I thought Spencer Knight really made some great saves when he needed to. There was one that he had one with the stick and then the end of his skate. So just I give Spencer Knight at least a B performance in this game, knowing that he wasn't tested early and then really had to step up his game really in the second and third periods.
Definitely, and Cole Caulfield has really come on lately ever since the coaching change that they made up in Montreal. So Marty St. Louis has really either lit a fire under him or maybe the pressure has been taken off his shoulders a little bit and he's just holding the play. So definitely a dangerous player coming into this game. So it was very fortunate for the Florida Panthers that he was not as effective as he has been in previous games. But you got to give your hat off to Spencer Knight tonight. I know it wasn't, exactly a night to remember per se, but at the same time, he made the saves when he had to, and that's what a good goaltender does. He gives your team a chance to win every single night, and that's exactly what they needed, in this game, with all the chances that the Canadiens had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of those opportunities that Cole Caulfield had was when Ben Sherratt was trying to work it around, and there wasn't a forward to go back, and then Caulfield had a breakaway at the other end. But the penalty kill for the Panthers, even though they gave up 5 power play opportunities to the Montreal Canadiens, some of them unforced errors, 2 delay of games, one of them by Ben Sherratt. And I was talking on Twitter on the Locked On Panthers page that the reason Reinhart stuck his stick out because he knew it was going to go out of play. And had Reinhart gotten away with that and just been a high stick and then a face off after, I would have just applauded Sam Reinhart for that. But referees were at a good angle, and of course it was a penalty on Ben Sherratt. Not the best debut for Ben Sherratt, but when the Panthers needed him most, especially on the PK, him and Giroux in that final PK on the 6-on-4, those two found a way to clear the zone and not give Montreal really much offensive zone time. And on the PK, Nick, 5 opportunities. The Florida Panthers only allowed 3 shots on goal on the PK in 5 opportunities.
It's amazing work, and that definitely is a testament to the defensive core that was brought in. So you had Hag, and then you also had Sherratt that was brought in. Sherratt was definitely brought in to be that physical defenseman and separate guys from pucks, and he did that all night. So he was very impressive with that. I do have a bone to pick with that delay of game call because I read the rule book and everything. Now, there's nothing in there saying that a player can't just go over the top per se and actually knock the puck out from going out of play. So my question is why didn't they just blow it as a high, a high stick like they would, anywhere else on the ice? I understand that the puck was going out, but at the same time, it never went fully out, and yet Reinhart was able to use his hand-eye coordination to make sure it did not go out. So Panthers were lucky that nothing happened on that, ensuing penalty kill, but I don't know. Maybe the rule book needs to get a little bit more granular with that because they were pretty granular about some other things like taking off your helmet during a breakaway, which would ensue on a penalty or a penalty shot for another team. I guess I've never seen that happen, but I guess that has to be in the rule book. But Reinhardt taking the puck out of the play to save Sherratt is a penalty. So.
Mm-hmm. It's more of an NHL problem, not really the officiating on the ice, but the way the rules are written, and sometimes it's like they don't want to call that, but they're told, and sometimes they have off ice officials telling them, hey, it was going out of bounds. But also, if it doesn't say it in the book, in the rule book, it doesn't say that it's not a penalty, neither nor a penalty. So maybe every rule book. I mean, I have my referee rule book right here, and every single rule that has names a situation, maybe situation A, B, C, you add a certain letter next to it. If a player is going to stick out their stick for a puck that's going out of play, then that would still count as a penalty. But I don't create the rules for the NHL, so that is something that I that honestly probably will be maybe reevaluating the offseason. I don't know, but
we should start a Twitter campaign.
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, Sherratt also, all three new Panthers got a point in this one. Sherratt had a beautiful shot that was tipped by Anthony Duclair, and I looked at the replay like 3 or 4 times. Duclair just gets his stick under lined up the net to get it in, and I thought that would. I seriously thought at first sight that was going to be called back and that they were going to review, but didn't go into review at all. How many replays did it take you to see that it wasn't a high stick deflected into the goal?
So I decided to watch the TSN feed just because I like to hear what other outlets are saying about the Florida Panthers and everything. And it took me 2 because they had one that was directly behind Sherratt when he took the shot, and then you saw Duclair's stick come down, and it was right in front of a Montreal defenseman. I can't remember who it was, but you could clearly see that when he made contact with the puck, his stick was either parallel or just underneath the actual bar itself. So even if Martin St. Louis wanted to actually challenge it, he would have a very hard time winning that because I don't think it would have been that conclusive evidence to say that it was high sticking. So hats off to the TSN crew for actually having that camera angle right there because it was a nice shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Duclair with his 25th of the season. Steve Goldstein on the Bally Sports broadcast mentioned how the Florida Panthers have 6 20-goal scorers on the team, most in team history. So we continue to see history for the Florida Panthers. Duclair gets his 25th. Sam Reinhart gets the one and only power play goal for the Panthers. Mason Marchment continues his incredible point per game pace. And once again, the Florida Panthers are likely going to lose him this offseason based on someone's going to pay him. And that's going to be a hard one to lose. But let's talk about the penalty kill unit. Of course, we were expecting a different partner with Alexander Barkov, of course, with Anton Lundell out. But even with Anton Lundell, if he wasn't hurt, I would think that Andrew Burnett would still go with Barkov Giroux on that top PK unit. And then we saw Sherratt Weegar. I assume when Aaron Ekblad comes back, I think it would be Sherratt Ekblad on that PK unit. And just the way they were able to clear the zone. Once again, I'm going to mention this again. I think it's worth mentioning. That last penalty kill was just extremely important for the Panthers. This game was a lot closer than it should have been. There's a time where the Florida Panthers in the first two periods, just alone, 15-7 shot on goal advantage. In period 1, 16-14. They outshot the Montreal Canadiens in this game, but they found the Montreal Canadiens just found a way to challenge Spencer Knight. And honestly, this penalty kill unit really saved the game for the Panthers.
They were aggressive, and they did what they had to do. They got into the passing zones, and they got into the shooting lanes as well. So definitely a good way or good technique as far as like being able to defend. But the big thing about the penalty kills that your goaltender's got to be your best penalty killer, and Spencer Knight did do that, and he stopped the play when he needed to, when the guys needed a rest. So seems like all things came together. And back to your point about Barkov and Giroux, playing together on the top PK. Notice when they actually play at even strength, when the puck is on which side of, the face-off circle, if it's on the right or the left, you notice that Giroux is going to take him on the right-handed side and Barkov is going to take him on the left-handed side. I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing that more, or they just let Giroux have defensive zone face-offs, because his percentage, I think that Frank said, on Monday's podcast, was at around like 55 or 56%. Which is amazing. So anytime you can get a guy in your lineup that can do that and win defensive draws, big draws like that, especially tonight, in a close game that shouldn't have been close, is a huge win for the Panthers.
Mm. And career averages for Drew is 55, but this season it's 61, so above his career average. And I'll tell a little bit of an explanation of possibly why Andrew Burnett's going to go that way. It's because of the angle. Bouncing it off the boards and getting it to your defenseman on the point. So if it's on the left-hand side and Barkov is going to win it, it's going to bounce off the board and right on the to the person, whoever's on the blue line. So it's going to really help with possession numbers. So I can understand the logic behind that. So it makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad you brought that up. So it makes more sense. The Montreal Canadiens, they pulled the goalie with 5 minutes left. Paul Byron all alone on Spencer Knight with the extra attacker, makes it 4-3. But they had a 6-on-4 with less than 2 minutes left. Kill 6-on-5 with 52. And then Montreal, too many times they shot themselves in the foot. We talked about the misses. Mm-hmm. We talked about Nick Suzuki not handling the puck in front of the net. And of course, at the end, just with 8 seconds left, too many men on the ice. And that's just a young team going through their lumps. And I mean, they are relatively young, but they still have some of the players that led them to the Stanley Cup final, but still a lot of turnover as well. So this is still not 100% the same team. And again, the Florida Panthers couldn't have asked for a worse opponent to go against. And if they play the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Colorado Avalanche or Carolina on a night like this, chances are the Florida Panthers don't come out with a win.
Yeah, definitely. Not every night's going to be your night, but maybe sometimes you play down to your competition. Not saying that Montreal played a bad game. I mean, I think both teams had definite opportunities. It seems like the referees were a little, free with their whistles tonight. There was a couple soft calls made on both sides, but you play the game that you're in, and not something another team that you're not playing. So. Panthers were just fortunate to get a couple of those bounces, a couple of those calls that went their way. The big goal of the night to me was Reinhardt's goal. The pass from Huberdeau, backhand right to him, and he went short side with it. So, you got to make your chances count, and thankfully Florida did.
Yeah, and that was after Josh Anderson had a offensive zone penalty for tripping Robert Haig. And that was Josh Anderson's second offensive zone penalty of the game. So more of the Montreal Canadiens shooting themselves in the foot for this game. But we're going to transition over to the next segment where we're going to talk more about the last two games of the road trip and the scores around the NHL on where the Florida Panthers stand on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. It's that time of year as college basketball tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Continuing this conversation on the Friday, March 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So, Nick, you know this already because we've discussed this in the chat, but Tampa Bay lost again. They lost to the Boston Bruins in regulation. Boston.
Did they drop in the standings again?
Yes, they dropped in the standings again. Toronto is just a point ahead of them, while the Tampa Bay Lightning have a game in hand. I'm just looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning's recent schedule, pulling it up right now. I think they're on a 3-game losing streak right now. Losing to New York Rangers at home, Carolina, and now Boston. So the Florida Panthers, the most, if my math is correct, the most points the Tampa Bay Lightning can right now have is 124. Right now, the Florida Panthers have 92, and their magic number to clinch a playoff spot due to Columbus's record is right at 12. We knew that they were going to be a playoff team going in, but the magic number is 12. The division is right there. So the magic number for the division increases by 4 with Panthers getting 2 points, Tampa Bay Lightning getting two points. So the division is once again there for the taking for the Panthers, and Tampa Bay Lightning, they might not even have home ice advantage in the first round, but again, I don't trust the Maple Leafs even if they have home ice advantage against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Definitely not. History dictates what that team is and what they're going to be. I like their addition of Giordano, and they got him for a good price. But let's see how he performs in playoff time. I'm still waiting to see how that turns out. Plus, they have yet to see the Florida Panthers this season, so I cannot wait for those games. And I think if we check the schedule, don't they play next week at some point?
Sunday night.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a good measuring stick. And on top of that, I don't know, maybe a preview for either the first or possibly, and I say highly unlikely, second round matchup.
Yeah, I'm still not counting on Toronto to beat Tampa Bay in a playoff series, especially with the goaltending that the Toronto Maple Leafs have. But more scores around the league. The Dallas Stars defeat the Carolina Hurricanes in a shootout. So actually, where does that leave the Florida Panthers as far as they're tied in points with a game in hand. That was actually a nationally televised game on ESPN, Dallas, Carolina. But I don't know if this is an updated version, but this standing says that they both have 90 points, and the Panthers have a game in hand. So so more scores around the league. New York defeats the Detroit Red Wings 5-2. Ottawa defeats the Winnipeg Jets, the Florida Panthers' next opponent. Flyers defeat the Blues. Wild beat the Canucks. Right now, as of this recording, Edmonton is defeating the San Jose Sharks 2-1. And Vegas, they're right now defeating the Nashville Predators just with 39 seconds left in the first period, 2-0 against the Nashville Predators. So I've been wanting to talk about this all week based on the updates of the situation with Evgeny Dadonov. So an update on the situation: the trade has officially been voided by the NHL, and the Vegas Golden Knights are in trouble. And the fact that even if they win tonight and they come up with a win, Their chances of making the playoffs are very unlikely. Dallas has 4 games in hand coming into tonight on the Vegas Golden Knights, and they're ahead by a point because they beat Carolina. But this team is in trouble. And they're even if they are to trade Evgeny Dadonov, he's not going to play the rest of the season. He did nothing wrong, neither in all of this, and I feel bad that he might not be able to play if he gets traded. And more importantly, for the Vegas side of things, if they trade him, they're going to have to probably pay more in order to get him off the books.
So this is a tale that needs to be taught across the whole NHL. So it's all about the LTIR, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's helped out Tampa Bay. It's now helping out the Florida Panthers. But it seems like it was too easy for Vegas just to go ahead and go through with spending to the cap and then, long-term, injured reserve somebody. So now they have Stone on there. In order to bring him back, I think I read somewhere they had to clear $9 million off the books. How are they going to do that with Dadonov, still on the roster, and he's only making $4 or $5 mil, and then they have to get rid of somebody else? I mean, talk about a nightmare scenario. But that's what happens when you put all your chips in and you don't really calculate, what could happen. They should have made this trade earlier, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the trade being voided, shame on both of those organizations. Number one, Ottawa for not sharing that information. And number two, for Vegas not asking or not asking for that type of information. And also basically just trying to, rig the system.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they're kind of getting what they deserve right now. And I really don't feel bad for them. I happen to be one of those fans that, I was happy for them when they went to the Stanley Cup their first year. I thought it was an awesome experience. It really energized the league. But after that, I don't know. It seemed like that, they were just going to find any way possible to stay where they were at and get back to the Cup final. And it finally caught up to them, and they weren't doing things the right way. So this is what happens. And unfortunately, a good player like Dadonov is going to be the scapegoat for it. And, I really hope the best for him, going in the future. He actually goes to place for somebody that actually wants him and where he would like to play.
Mm. And right now the NHL is doing their GM meetings in Manalapan. I don't know how to pronounce the city, but it's just north of Boynton Beach. They're meeting right now this weekend. And one of the topics brought up from reports is using LTIR space. And so that's going to be a conversation. One GM brought that up. So could we see changes in the future based on that? I don't know. Mark Stone's not only the only one on LTIR. The other one is Alec Martinez. I think he had 30 stitches on his face for taking a skate. Ouch! I would never want to take a skate to the face. I wouldn't even want to wish.
You don't want to meet that guy in a bar, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
And one other thing that I wanted to bring up as well is if the NHL wants to get around this LTIR issue, is that they need to start raising the cap. The fact that, and I understand that, the past couple of years have been tough for business and everything like that, but only raising the cap an extra $1 million that they're rumored to do for the next year is going to force teams to keep doing this. They need to raise the cap. They need to pay their players. And from there, they can actually squash out the actually long-term injured reserve then.
Mm. And this is a issue with sports, not just the NHL. The salary cap has frozen in the NHL. It's gone down in other leagues, like the NFL this coming off season. But franchise values are going up. So that really doesn't sit well with me when the value. Of course, their owners aren't seeing this money physically in their pockets because they haven't sold the teams yet. But knowing that it's worth, and you have that in your back pocket there with the franchises raising, so the value's raising. So it leaves me a little bit of a bad taste that they can't accommodate the players. I know inflation's a thing. I get it. Where in our economy right now, inflation's at the highest it's ever been. But still, only 1 million next year. That it just doesn't sit well with me.
No, it's another squeeze on players. I mean, unfortunately, owners have to, pony up money for, basically all operations of the team, right? And how do they get their revenue? How do they get their money? What puts fans in the seats? It's the players. It's the quality of the group on the ice and everything like that. I mean, hell, like you and I could see that for Florida. I mean, how many times do we get chirped at about not having only 7 fans on Twitter or even at the game? But now that fans are starting to come back, you're starting to see that there is value here and that there is a valuable product on the ice. So why aren't the players more part of that conversation instead of, oh, well, guys, we can only afford to raise the cap another $1 million so that your salaries can fit in and so you guys can be a functional franchise? No, that's not the way it should be. And I understand that there's other teams that are not making it right now. There's a team out west that's going to be moving into like a 5,000 to 7,000 person capacity, stadium. Understand that. I completely do. Maybe that's a topic for another conversation, but at the same time, is that the players' fault? No, it's up to the owners. It's up to Gary Bettman and the Board of Governors to understand the economics of the game and to really put the money where it should be, and that is for their main product, which is the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where, and you mentioned butts in the seats, players. We come to see them play, and of course, with the winning that's happened in our market, we're seeing players marketed. Even though the NHL can do a better job of marketing, more people around South Florida definitely know who Alexander Barkov is. He even said that when Claude Giroux got traded, he gained some followers on Instagram.
5,000.
Yeah, so he gained quite a little bit. So all the players coming down to South Florida, we Thornton, Hornquist, Giroux. It's only making this team more popular. Of course, you got to win to create your popularity, but it's definitely helping the Florida Panthers being more marketable. And there's I actually saw a tweet today. Speaking of marketable, I saw a tweet today of the updates of the War Memorial Coliseum in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's looking great, and I'm excited for them to definitely open it next off season.
Yeah, it really does. It looks state of the art. I would not have. I saw blueprints of it, a couple years ago when they first said that they were going to start, breaking ground and everything. And now to see where it's at and everything, they built that really quickly. So, hats off to the organization and the teams that they have there, building this place up. I really hope it is it's going to be one of the main attractions that maybe NHL players will be brought to. I mean, you can go to downtown Fort Lauderdale. Now you have all these rinks to take advantage of and, really kind of live your life and, get into the flow of things down there. So who knows what'll happen with the Florida Panthers now. So, just glad to see that things are starting to really come together and it's starting to grow very well in the market down here.
Yeah, I'm excited and definitely for the time being, they're here to stay, and then the winning helps, and building a new practice facility definitely helps. But Nick, I want to thank you for jumping on this episode of Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to discuss this 4-3 win over the Montreal Canadiens. The Florida Panthers do have a back-to-back against the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Big one, especially on Sunday, and definitely we'll definitely be we'll be ready to get up and I'm just feeling super excited for that game on Sunday because of course we talked about it. No matchups against the Toronto Maple Leafs, their first one coming this Sunday. But tell everybody where they can follow you on the internet.
Well, guys, you guys can find me on Twitter at Prudentious0, and you can also follow my work on PantherParkway.com, and as always on the Locked On podcast on Fairbanks Fridays with Armando. So thank you guys again, and Armando, thank you again for having me on for another Friday edition.
Absolutely, man, and thank you once again for joining me on the show, and can't wait for next Friday. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you listen to today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy team. Follow the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.